Alright, hello once again YouTube, it's Captain Nabs here with you once more, and we're here for part 2 of my first video here of the PMDG 747-400 Queen of the Skies 2. A name that is as long as the airplane is big. But it is a fitting name because it really is a Queen of the Skies. It really is a well-done airplane overall. As you're gonna see here in part 2, we're going to have a really good look at the outside model once we get going. So, job 1 is to get this airplane off the ground, taxi, takeoff, and underway. And once we get up in the sky and the autopilot is on, we'll start having a really good solid look at the detail on the outside of this airplane, on the inside, and show you some of the neat features. So without further ado, we'll get right back into it, and thanks for watching. And Minneapolis, UPS 922, ready for taxi.
UPS 922 heavy, runway 12 right, taxi via Tango Yankee.
Tango Yankee for 12 right, UPS 922, thanks. Tango right ahead, straight ahead here, and then a right turn on Yankee to get to the runway. Parking brake off. Give her a little power to get going here. And taxi light on.
902 Tango, Roger, reports level at 8,000.
She takes a fair bit of power to get going. Once she gets going, though, the inertia does carry her quite well. She will slow down if you don't add a little bit of power, keep a little bit of power on there. I thought this was going to be a horrible airplane to maneuver, and really it's not so bad. The key thing to remember when you're taxiing this airplane is that the nose wheel is underneath the flight deck door. So way back here, that flight deck door, basically the nose wheel is underneath that. So as long as you kind of keep that on the yellow line, usually you'll do pretty well. The other things to remember when you're taxiing this giant beast of an aircraft: go deep into the turns again. Remember where that wheel is. Slow down for the turns. No more than 10 knots to make any kind of 90-degree turn. Anything faster than 12 knots, and the main gear will not steer. And that'll be more than a little frustrating. So I tend to definitely decelerate right in turns. Go pretty deep into it. The nose wheel, just want to start the turn just gently now. The nose of the aircraft's going to end up overshooting quite a bit, but then if you go to the external view, you'll see that we're doing quite a nice job of keeping all the wheels on the pavement. Assuming I can continue looking out the window. Alright, Tango Yankee, the runway is literally right there, so we're going to do a before takeoff checklist. Before takeoff checklist, flaps are 10 on the MFT, and that's it.
Delta 1489, wind 1504, runway 12 right, clear to land.
And it sounds like someone's going to land right in front of us, which is always fun to watch. I love the VATSIM network for that. We'll get to watch somebody land right in front of us here. So we'll go ahead and deselect the taxi light as we approach the runway. And the FlightBeam scenery is really quite nice too. I've turned down some of the grass effects just because I needed it to keep my processor running, but the FlightBeam scenery really looks really good. The wet pavement effects, the rain effects are really neat. The signs all look fantastic. The scenery, the area scenery looks fantastic. It all looks really good. And even there's little tunnels there's a tunnel right underneath this taxiway here that leads to that infield cargo area.
Water speed 4623, center maintain 4,000.
Alright, there we go. Set the parking brake. And see if we can spot this guy in final. There's a window post right in my way, so we'll see if we can switch to the external view. One of the side views here.
Water speed 4623 to center maintain 5,000.
Somebody on final, cleared to land for this runway, so we're just waiting for them. I don't see them out there.
Water speed 4720 or water speed 4623.
Just have just a nice little scroll around, look at this airplane, like look at the beautiful detail. Like the paint job is so nice and crisp that it looks very slick. But when you get close to this airplane too, you see the detail. There's a lot of detail out there. Look at the detail on FlightBeam's scenery here too. We've got Just absolutely beautiful. We got the tunnels. We've got all these vehicles here, adding life to the airport. The terminals, from what I've seen, are fantastic. I've seen them fairly far away. Keep looking for this airplane here, and UPS 922 is ready for takeoff. Runway 12 right. Throw that out there.
FedEx 284, turn right, heading 030, back to the final approach course. Right, 030, back to
Oh, I do see this guy on the TCAS. He is coming.
UPS 922, heavy, roger, hold short right, 12 right, traffic, short final.
Okay, watch for the traffic, UPS 922 heavy. I don't see this traffic. Where is he? He's only at like 1,000 feet. I don't think the ceiling's that bad, is it? Why don't I see this traffic yet? He's just going to pop out right in front of us all of a sudden here. Oh, actually, I do see him now. Right in the middle, just really small, but there he is. There he is. I wonder if we could see him from in the flight deck, but probably not. That window post, again, is perfectly positioned to be in the way. Part of the joys of flying on the VATSIM network, though. Actually waiting for traffic, but it's nice to be at an airport that's busy enough that I actually have to hold short the runway for any length of time for traffic. We'll try not to take too long on the runway once we get going here. This is the BVAI
284, 5 miles from Zesty, turn right, heading 090.
AI models, although if that's a 717, that might be the TFDI 717, since that's one I have.
Sorry, right, 090, clear file, left, 12 right first, FedEx 284.
Very nice. Hit like the 1,500 foot marks. Alright, anybody else on final? And nobody else on my TCAS, so. I know Minneapolis is busy running a whole center here.
UPS 922 heavy, runway 12 right, line up and wait.
12 right, line up and wait, UPS 922 heavy. Alright, give it a little bit of power. Line up only on the runway, we get the taxi.
UPS 922 heavy, actually, other guy's cleared, 150 at 4, fly runway heading, runway 12 right, clear for takeoff.
Okay, fly runway heading initially, 12 right, clear for takeoff, UPS and 922 heavy. Alright, the joy of trying to line up this beast on the runway again. You want to go till pretty much you think the nose wheel is pretty much on the center line, and then don't make a full hard deflection of the tiller, but pretty close.
Delta 1489, roger, taxi parking via Bravo
And it wasn't quite. I turned. That's a little bit too soon. Pretty good.
Be advised, we broke out of the clouds are about 500 feet below.
Alright. The lights are on. And we go to 70% N1 for power check.
FedEx 284,
Make sure it stabilizes. And then press the secret toga button there, which is that little screw. And there we go. Away we go. And she tends to need a fairly aggressive rotation. You need to pull pretty far back to get it to go up. Gear up.
RP 4623, I'm unable to vector to any approach to Dickinson. Expect the full procedure approach to the Dickinson VOR.
Alright. And as we cross to 1,000 feet, select any of the autopilots you want, command, and we'll select the heading, runway heading. Give it a second to start pitching down. And because we didn't do VNAV, it didn't accelerate on its own, so as she starts to reach. UPS 922 heavy, 5,500 for 7,000. It's already leveling off. It'll start accelerating again here soon. Normally I do it in VNAV mode, but because of the fly runway heading I did not. It threw me for a loop.
UPS 922 heavy radar contact. Stay out leaving me. I'm sorry, I missed it.
UPS 922 heavy through 6500 for 7000. And flaps 5.
UPS 922 heavy roger, con maintain flight level 410, clear direct Wellstone.
Alright, climb flight level 410. Say again the fix for UPS 922 heavy.
UPS 922 heavy, direct Wellstone.
Direct Wellstone UPS 922 heavy. Alright, so first of all, 410. Let's get this thing climbing. Alright, 410, and we're just going to go flight level change green for now at 250 knots. And then Wellstone top, and then hit execute. And you'll see the nice turn there, and LNAV mode. And here's LNAV green, and we're in the turn. Alright, and we should be flaps up. I missed the accelerations while I was doing everything else. Where's my first officer when I need him to tell me to do stuff?
0902 Tango, expect you'll be number 2 to the airport.
It's a fun airplane. It's not a whole lot going on in this airplane. It's a good airplane, but things happen quickly, especially when you're fairly light. Even that was a takeoff too. That was a fairly derated. That was a 15% derated takeoff, I believe, and still this thing just climbs like a bat out of hell. Alright, so now that we're on course, I'm going to go into VNAV mode, VNAV speed, and what it'll do is now at 10,000 feet it will accelerate to its ideal climb speed based on the cost index. In the meantime, before anything else happens, I'm going to do the after takeoff checklist as well. So landing gear is up and off, and the flaps are up. If they vanish off here, they're up. So after takeoff checklist is complete through 10,000, we can shut off the lights.
Or 90902 Tango.
I can get all the switches to work here. Shut off all the landing and taxi lights. And quick pressurization check. If you look here in the corner, cabin altitude 2200, climbing at 400 feet per minute with a differential of 3.8. It's pretty good. And passenger signs panel, we can, if we have any people in the upper deck here, we can signal them to get up. So, you know, although it's strictly a cargo aircraft, you can have like a half dozen people sitting on the upper deck here behind the flight deck. There is a little cabin type area, and where there's no cargo, where there's just room for the pilots to either sleep, have a rest period in flight, have a relief area, or you can also carry jump seaters.
23
and away we go. So now here we go. We're doing climb 2, and we're climbing at over 4,000 feet per minute at 326 knots. Compared to some of the other airplanes I fly, what a fantastic performance. I just flew the Cherokee earlier today, and that's a little bit of a difference in performance, but this is what you expect when you have 4 engines running at full tilt in front of you here. Give it a second, and there we go. Just a thing of beauty. Even the wing flex is modeled. If you watch carefully, you'll see that wing flexing as we move, as the wind blows around the aircraft. You can see just so much detail on this aircraft. You can see the pitot tubes and the AOA vanes there, the total air temperature probes.
284.
The wipers look like they're individually put on there. We're in there, of course. The flight crew's in there. How about this? Like the rain sill above the door, the rain gutter above the door to keep the rain from going in the door when it's open on a rainy day. Like, just the level of detail on this aircraft is just absolutely phenomenal. And considering the size of this aircraft and the amount of detail to be captured, it really does a fantastic job. The wing flex looks really good. Like, it's subtle. You don't really notice it unless you're looking for it, but it's there. When you do look for it, it is there. Beautiful reflections. You know, the rivets, the escape hatch, the light, all the antennas, the individual antennas above and below. Like, it's absolutely phenomenal aircraft to observe externally here. And same thing even in the flight deck. Just absolutely wonderful. I'm really, really enjoying this airplane. what more can I say? The level of detail. I knew I was going to get this airplane sooner or later. I eventually bit the bullet and did it, and I don't regret it. It is just absolutely phenomenal how this thing looks. And here I am trying to get all the I'm not trying to get the floodlighting on. I don't like the floodlighting. Okay, we're through 18,000, so set standard. I did not take standard. There it is. Standard is set and cross-checked at passing 22.8. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And in the flight deck too, like the level of detail. Like I've started to turn on the night lights. I think this will be a great time to do this flight because you'll see some of the night lighting effects kick in here. As we're sort of in a dusk flight. By the time we get to Toronto, it'll probably be evening. So you'll be able to see some of those effects, but you get close to it and everything's there. The buttons even look a little bit worn around the edges, especially the ones that you probably end up pushing more often. The placards are there. Everything is very crisp. Dust on the displays. Everything looks really good. The colors are really nice and vibrant on the displays, but you can turn those down. There you go. If you want to, everything is controllable like the real airplane. Even on the yoke, there is a checklist here. I use a paper checklist, but if you wanted to use this checklist, there's even a counter on the checklist. You could literally drag this counter to where you want it to be, and I guess right-click, right, to go back. Yeah, you can literally just click and move this counter to wherever you want to do, so you can run the checklist that way, as some people do in the real world. It's just everything is there. The detail is phenomenal. The tillers turn as you're taxiing the aircraft. You'll see them actually turn. What can I say? Everything is modeled. It's what you expect from a PMDG product. It's absolutely looks phenomenal from in here. Even window shades. If you needed them, they're all there. Like it really is quite a thing of beauty to fly, and it's really not that challenging to fly either. I was anticipating. I've never really flown a 747, at least not in a very long time. I was anticipating a little bit more challenge, actually, to be honest. It's not as challenging as I thought it was going to be. Hope that wasn't for us. The FMC is pretty standard Boeing material, what you expect from Boeing, so no challenges there. The systems are mostly automated. I haven't had too many failures yet. I do have a QRH. If we do have any failures on this flight, I'm ready. I do have service-based failures. Another feature that I think is fantastic about PMDG's product, and I just love it, is service-based failures. So take a moment out from our climb to show you just quickly here on my third FMS here. Go back to our PMDG setup and go into aircraft failures. So you can obviously, like any other PMDG product, you can fail individual items in individual systems. You could set a random system to fail. You can program a failure to occur at any time. Or you could just wait for service-based failures. So I have service-based failures enabled. I have a 4 times rate, so and that's another great feature. You're never going to fly enough hours to really start to see a lot of stuff actually fail. So I've cranked it up. Normally the next service will be due in 232 hours. It's actually due 58 hours of me flying this airplane because I've got it going, wearing out 4 times faster than reality, and I might bump that up again. I'm just curious if anybody else has got this PMDG products. What have you bumped up the service? The maintenance wear rate, the service-based failure rate above 4 times. I started with 1, just the first couple times I took the airplane out, and then as soon I bumped it up to 4. I want things to fail once in a while when you're flying. It adds interest. If whether or not you can complete the mission, who knows? Maybe you can. Maybe you can't. Maybe you won't be able to complete the mission. And if that's, so be it. Sometimes you got to make a decision. You got to divert because things don't go the way you want them to. that's just the way life is sometimes in aviation, and that's, to me, is part of the fun. So I'm curious to see if I ever get any of those service-based failures. I'm sure I will eventually.
589 leaving my airspace, Salt Lake City Center offline, radar surface permanent occurrence change of route.
Alright, but here we come up to Walston for our first turn on course here. One thing I missed a little bit, and the MD-80, I thought it was a great feature, was using the scroll wheel on these screens. You could zoom in and out just by rolling the scroll wheel when you were you had your pointer on the screen. Simple thing, but very, very useful little tool. I hit Walston, top of climb, pretty much at Walston. Very shortly here. So pressurization holding up as we get through 36,000. Cabin altitude is 5,800, 8.5 diff. Still climbing at a reasonable rate. So far everything seems pretty hunky-dory, and here I spend more time, I think, staring in the airplane than out, just because it's such a beautiful flight deck.
Water P40, 620 track, Arcane Station, receive, thanks.
Seems like a nice busy evening in Minneapolis, though.
Visual approach, Dickinson Airport.
But if you fly this airplane a lot too, and you fly to VNAV, it's so hands-off. It's which is really the ideal way to fly it. The VNAV is the most optimal way to fly it. With the FMC has been programmed with the most efficient operations for this airplane, and that's what you're that's what you want to try and fly as much as possible, if assuming you want to save your virtual airline money, anyways, along the way. So you put it into VNAV mode. It'll within the restrictions. You program the 250 below 10,000 foot restrictions in there. As soon as it reaches above that, it's going to stretch its legs and get right up to its most efficient climb speeds, which usually still result. I mean, we're still climbing at 1,400 feet per minute here at 38,000 feet, and I think this is the first time I've taken any of these airplanes up to 41. I think, or maybe I have taken it up to 41. I did a couple of when I was learning, I did a couple of simulated ferry flights out of Seattle to various airports with a couple of 747s just to simulate some delivery flights, and it was a good chance for me to sort of learn the airplane with definitely some lighter aircraft with some better performance, although it's still pretty light. I have not done too much transatlantic flying yet. I will soon. Need some good destination airports to fly to as well. Most of my scenery is in North America right now. It's also hard to justify sometimes that much time in the airplane. But alright, 5 miles to Walston. Count that time down nice and quick. She's already starting to turn. 4 miles from Walston because we're moving at Mach decimal 847. Turn that weather radar on. There was some stuff out there. There was some rain. I saw some stuff as we were leaving Minneapolis, but I don't see too much stuff out there now. Off towards Green Bay, Heiserman, and an Uber 2 arrival into Toronto. Fairly straightforward flight. Hopefully cruise flight's not going to be too boring here. But I'll probably cut this off at cruise, and I may rant about a few things in cruise, but you can skip to the arrival video if you really want to see the exciting stuff. This is flight level 400 climbing flight level 410. See the fingerprints on the engine display here on the ICAS as the windows move across here, the sun's shadows move across here, which are quite entertaining in and of themselves. Alright, just watching it level here at 410, making sure that does capture properly. VNAV path, and there we go. I guess it's level. I thought it switched to alt, but apparently it does not want to switch to alt. It's just going to hold right there, which is fine. There's 410.
Roger, 9 fingers on the ground, beacon 7 cancel for.
She is successfully leveled off.
09er,
Let's do a quick little check here. So we're now in a cruise 847 410. We could step to 450 if we wanted to. Optimal is at 422 right now. We're okay. If you had an engine out, you could easily do that. Economy descent. What else can we do here? So let's have a quick little progress check here. So distance to Green Bay, 115 miles. We're going to get there at 22:45 in about 14 minutes. And then Toronto at 23:41. So just over 1 hour from now, we'll be landing in Toronto at with 40,000 pounds still in the tank. Lots of extra fuel, really. We're doing really good with the fuel here, which is good. And any way to record the off time here, because it just seemed like that was a nice, really quick climb to cruise, but I don't think it recorded our off time, unfortunately. Pity. Alright, and then we just start hauling our rear end there. Now, one thing that I do want to show, and I'm not sure if even everybody who flies a PMDG is aware of, one of the really neat shortcuts in this called the AutoCruise, which is a really neat shortcut. If you don't read the documents, you don't find out about some of this stuff. So there are some options for it. So again, we go back into my favorite FMS here for the options here, and return to setup. So options. And so you have all sorts of options. You can change all sorts of stuff. You can change the colors of the CRT to customize all sorts of stuff for your particular airline. Sound is a great option here. In external view and in background. So if you want the sound in the exterior view, and if you want sound in the background. So you switched windows. I switched to look at VATSIM, for example, or anything else. Yes, it still plays, which is just great. That's the way it should be. It really bugs me when you lose prepared noise, prepared sounds when you're switching to other tasks, when you're just trying to look at an approach chart and all of a sudden the airplane stops making noise. It's so frustrating. You can customize all sorts of key commands in this airplane, which is great. Performance, you can do various things, change the frame rates of various items in the flight deck, and all sorts of other things to adjust the performance. But simulation, 10 pages of options. The one I wanted to show you that I think is really useful, I think it's on like page, I don't even know where it is here, here it is, page 6. Basically this is all about auto climb, or auto cruise, which is a really neat feature. So if you want to step away from the flight deck and have a little controlled rest while you're flying a long haul flight, the FMS can be your simulated FO. I don't encourage that, of course, if you're on the VATSIM network, but if you're if you're just doing long haul, log out to VATSIM network, you want to go have a nap, you got some errands to run, there's various things you can do to automate the cruise process. Auto step climbs. So as the aircraft is capable of climbing to higher altitudes that are more optimal as the fuel gets burned and the airplane gets lighter, you can automate those. Pause atop a descent is a pretty standard feature. I'm going to turn that off because I'm going to be paying attention to this flight today. I don't need that feature today. But nice to have that there for those of us that sometimes have to step away, do some errands, come back, and want to do the approach and landing. Reaching tank engine. So you may have seen the tank engine misconfiguration message I had here when we were sitting on the ground. Let's see if I can trigger it again here. Open up those valves. So this just indicates that there's something wrong with your fuel tank, fuel pump configuration, based on the fuel levels in the various fuel tanks around the aircraft. Either you need to turn on more pumps, or turn off some pumps, or close some valves or something. There's a bunch of different scenarios. Most of them are covered in the manual. Once again, PMDG's done a great job with the manual. But if you're an AutoCruise, there's a center tank, for example. So let me bring up the fuel page here. So we have a center tank. So we've got a wing tank basically dedicated to each engine, but then we've got a center tank which bulks out a whole lot of extra fuel, which we have to distribute back to the other engine, back to the engines and the other tanks while we're flying. However, you don't want to turn the center pumps on when the tank is dry. You don't want to run those pumps when the tank is dry. So normally you would run it. Soon after you take off, you turn those pumps on. It pumps all the fuel away, and you want to drain the center tank first, and then leave the wing tanks with fuel in them. And you'll get that fuel tank message when it's time to turn off those pumps. If you're not around, then those pumps could run for a very long time, could wear out prematurely. However, again, auto tank engine config, or pilot handles, or pause, and then so you come back, you say, oh, something happened, I have to do something, and at least it doesn't wear out the pump. So there's various options there. Auto time compression up to 8 times, which is great, and the chronometer button right click auto time compression. Direct sim rate control or auto time compression. So auto compression is a neat little feature whereby when you click it, your aircraft, I'm going to reduce this a little bit to 4 times just because I'm on the VATSIM network. I don't want to accelerate too much without telling somebody. But what happens is when you right click on this button, the chronometer button, you'll see these numbers turn green. And what that means is that AutoCruise and auto time compression is now engaged. If the simulation determines that nothing exciting is happening, it's very boring right now.
22, Minneapolis Center closing, radar service, terminated frequency change approved.
Okay, we copy over to Unicom UPS 922 Heavy. Have a good night.
AC2.
Alright, over to Unicom. Hopefully Toronto Center will still be there when we get there. Well, great, now I can show you even better how AutoCruise works. So again, we'll bring this up to, heck, we'll bring it up to 8 times. So basically what happens is if nothing's happening, it'll accelerate as much as it feels it can up to 8 times. If anything happens, it'll slow time right back down again. So you reach a top of descent point, you reach a turn, things like that, it will slow time right down again. And all you have to do is just right click on this chronometer button here. If these turn green, that means AutoCruise is now enabled. And look at how fast the distance is counting down to Green Bay now. And you can start to see now the clouds just flying by the airplane. We're now cruising at 8 times. Don't like it, want to turn it off, right click again on the chronometer button, boom. The numbers turn orange, indicates that AutoCruise is off, we're back to normal speed. Just as simple as that, not even going into the sim menus. This is one thing that PMDG does phenomenally well. And that is that they take you right out of the menu system. You don't need any menus, you don't need anything running besides the actual simulator itself. That's all you need running. And everything happens, all the load, the weight and balance, aircraft repairs and maintenance, even time acceleration, all happens within the simulator, within the aircraft flight deck. You don't need to be outside the flight deck to do any of that, which is just, to me, is a great thing. It really, again, adds up to the immersion that this airplane, you don't have to step out of this flight deck to do everything you need to do for your flight, which is great. To me, that's just the way it should be. And I wish more developers would follow that lead. I think that's a great lead. There's not too many shortcomings in this airplane. The few shortcomings, there are a few. There's one, of course, is that it is performance heavy, but that's to be a given the state of this simulation, given the just given the nature of this simulation, like how much is going on, like the system's depth. You know, you turn on the hydraulic pumps and things happen. You turn on generators and lights and things happen. Electrical systems, go off. The engines are turning. They use up their oil. Traffic. Somebody at 10,000 feet below me is triggering a traffic alarm. Okay, it's a little over the top, I think. But those are some of the great things that this airplane does really, or that's one of the things that it's a little bit of a drawback. You need to have a powerful system, especially if you want to have any decent scenery as well to go with this airplane. And it seems silly to land this beautiful airplane at default airports. They're just not detailed enough. You've got this beautiful detailed flight deck, and then you have these blocky default terminals. So I really can't abide. I really have a hard time with that, anyways. The one drawback, I think probably the biggest drawback at this point with PMDG products, and they really, really need to get with the program on this, is the lack of the multiplayer ability. And I think all of you that fly these airplanes would probably love to fly it with somebody. And given the detail, the level of detail in these aircraft, I am surprised that it just doesn't seem to be on their radar. I really am very surprised. And my pet theory, and I'll tell this to anybody that will listen, my pet theory is that they didn't bake in enough support for it from the beginning. They didn't think there would be a market for it, so they didn't bake in the support from the beginning, and they don't want to do it because it's just too challenging at this point. And I'm not trying to be critical of them as a developer, because they've done a great job with this product, but they have done such a great job with this product, and they've created one of the most accurate one of the most accurate replications of this flight deck. Everything that happens in the real airplane happens on this flight deck pretty much, and all the emergencies and all the systems and everything. And as a result, the real airplane is a 2-crew airplane. This flight deck really should be a 2-crew flight deck. The idea that, trying to cruise along and you zoom back, or zip back to the after takeoff. I was trying to turn the aircraft on course, I was trying to increase the altitude, trying to engage the autopilot correctly, and I did not retract the flaps on schedule because I was trying to do too many other things all at once. And again, it just comes down to, you really need 4 hands to fly this airplane properly. Not all the time. Like in cruise, it's fairly docile, there's not much happening. I'm sitting here, I'm just panning around, I'm talking to you. Not much is happening. We're just monitoring the airplane. We're over Green Bay. We're making sure that things are working properly the way they should. But certainly for the heavier phases of flight, it would be great to have a second set of hands in here. Somebody to throw all the switches, the lights on and everything while you're taxiing and lining up on the runway. Someone to hit your, go around or your toga button for you. Dial in your altitudes and headings while you're hand flying initially, and retract the flaps for you. So you're not doing all this stuff by yourself and trying to monitor and manage the autopilot and fly the airplane. And I'm not saying that you need to have someone there all the time. You could, once you're up in the air, if you're on a long haul flight, you could take shifts and relief pilots, and that would also be great. I think that ability to take shifts. I'm gonna okay, we did the departure, we're level off in cruise. Okay, it's 6 hours or 8 hours to London or whatever. I'm going to step away from the flight deck for the next hour or so. I'm going to go grab some food, maybe do some errands around the house. You have the flight deck, and then I'll come back in 2 hours and you go do something. And then, as much as you want to spend some time in the flight deck with people, it's also a chance to get stuff done, but without leaving the flight deck unmonitored. Someone's here if something happens, and, depending on the nature of your relationship, they can, if there's a natural emergency, engine fails or something like that, they can shoot you a text, hey, get your ass back in here, we got something to do. I think that, and I've read that PMDG, they just don't think it's a viable market for multiplayer. I think I think they couldn't be more wrong. I think they could not be more wrong. I think there is a huge market out here. There are hundreds upon hundreds of, probably thousands of people who own this airplane and the many other PMDG products, and would just absolutely love to go flying with their friends. Especially long haul flying. It's a long time to sit there staring at the flight deck, chatting with nobody, just staring at the flight deck. At least having somebody to talk to the whole time is a great leg up. And again, managing these aircraft, even when things are going right, departures and arrivals, a lot of stuff has to happen really quickly. Taxiing in and out, you've got flows to do while you're looking where you're going and taxiing. It's too much for one person, really. In cruise, it's not. In cruise, it's easy for one person to monitor. But yeah. PMDG, you really need to get your stuff in gear. This is a great product. You've done a fantastic job with it, but it's missing one crucial, to me, absolutely crucial feature, and I cannot wait to try this out one day. I would love to see it happen. I hope they're going to do it one day, and I fear that they're not, because the simulation is so complex and there's so much information to be passed along that it wasn't designed that way at the beginning. that it would be all but impossible for them to tack on that ability after the fact. I'm afraid that that's the reason why they've said that they don't want to do multiplayer. It's because it would be too hard. There would be too much that they need to do to get it to work properly. PMDG, please prove me wrong. I would love you to prove me wrong. I would love to take this. I have quite a few friends who have this airplane, and I would absolutely love to take this up flying with some of them. We would just absolutely have a blast. It would be so nice to have just a helping set of hands sometimes in departure. I don't mind flying the right seat. I don't mind being the pilot monitoring. To be honest, you sort of, everyone thinks, oh, everyone wants to be the captain, everyone wants to be the pilot flying. Just sitting there and being able to look out the window a little bit more, you're still helping, but being able to sort of watch out the window while somebody else is actually doing the bulk of the flying, and you can see the scenery, because you've paid all this money for great airport scenery, and you watch it go by at 130 knots, and then boom, you're nose up in the sky, and you're busy flying the airplane, and by the time you're done being busy flying the airplane, the airport's 20 miles behind you, and you can't see it anymore. So sometimes it's nice to be the pilot monitoring. I've enjoyed the pilot monitoring position when I've done it in the past. I really have. So I think anyone that thinks that, oh, it would be boring for whoever's not flying, it won't. It's not. It's great to have company. It's great to be a part of a team helping to get the job done. So PMDG, please. All I want for Christmas is multiplayer capabilities in these airplanes. That's not something you're going to do for Christmas, I know. But nevertheless, it's something that I think should be done really seriously. I think they're kidding themselves if they say that the market's not there to support it, because it's there. It's totally there. Alright, so this is going to be the end of part 2 of our flight from Toronto to Minneapolis here in the 747. And I hope you're enjoying this so far. I hope you've learned something about the airplane. I have definitely learned quite a lot about this airplane since I started flying it, and I'm enjoying it a lot. If you look at the bottom, you'll see that there is still a lot of time left on this video, about another 15 or 20 minutes. I left the flight recording while I stepped away, and it's just such a beautiful thing to watch. It's such a beautiful aircraft that I left the video in there. So if you want to just see some clips of the airplane flying along and enjoy the beauty, then go ahead and watch some more of this video. If you want to skip right to where we start talking again, go ahead to part 3 for the approach briefing and the approach and landing into Toronto. There's no more commentary left in this video after this. So thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you for supporting me in the channel. Without you guys, I wouldn't be doing this. And we will see you all next time in part 3. Thanks.